G'day and welcome to Gardening Australia. We've got a packed show for you and I can't wait to get into it. Here's what's coming up.
I'm Jane Edmondson and I've been on Gardening Australia for nigh on 28 years, right from the very beginning.
Fresh, homegrown fruit. We all love it. But for a harvest like this, you've got to get planting. And today, I'm putting some of my first fruit trees in the ground. And you can give me a hand.
Edwina.
Hello, Costa.
It's lovely to meet you.
You too.
I saw the house, I saw the blue and white. I thought, this has got to be the funky house I'm looking for. Right,
So come
here we go.
After you.
This 1.5 hectare garden in Pollara near Brisbane reflects the twin passions of the couple that have created it. Will for the intriguing world of cycads and Margaret for the colourful and showiness of bromeliads. You seem to have married your cycad and bromeliad collections very well in the landscape. Do they work well together as plants?
Well, I think they do. Like you see the cycad here, sort of a bit taller, and it will grow taller again, the bromeliad lower. The cycads don't produce flowers, the bromeliads do, so you've got best of both worlds here.
Now, I can tell that that's an encephalitis, an African cycad, but beyond that, I'm lost.
Well, it's an encephalitis princeps, which is one of the blue varieties. There's a few of them that are very blue in colour.
Margaret, how about this bromeliad here? I can see that's a dickia, but I've never seen one quite like that.
It's a dickia naked lady because it has no spines on the edge of the leaf.
So is it a little bit safer to work with?
Yes, it is, except that it does have a sharp spine on the end, but overall it is much easier than a normal dickia.
After seeing that amazing bromeliad, I can't resist having a look at some of the others that Margaret has in the garden. How many bromeliads do you have?
I have over 600 different types of bromeliads.
Wow. Well, these Neoregeles are a great representation of the group. And over there, the Vrieses are really stunning too. Now, you've got them in different positions. Is that because of different light requirements?
Yes, they do require different light conditions. If you put them in too much shade, they'll lose their colour.
Okay.
So they still need some sun, but the Vrieses can take a little bit more.
I could happily talk to Margaret about bromeliads all day, but I can feel the irresistible lure of Will's amazing cycad collection. Now, there's roughly 300 species of cycad in the world. How many would originate in Australia?
We've got about 80 species in Australia, so we're quite well represented.
So within the Brisbane area, how many species are there?
There are 3 species in Brisbane. One is a macrosomia that looks very similar to this, Macrosomia mcquellii. Another one called Macrosomia lucida, which is a smaller plant, and Lepidosomia perovskiana.
Cycads are dioecious, which means the plants are either boys or girls.
That's right.
So if you want to get seed, you've got to have both.
Absolutely.
What is this?
Well, this is a female, and as you can see, it's an encephalitis, and it's got quite bright yellow cones. Male cones are generally much more slender and upright. If you want to get the seeds off it, you have to do the pollination yourself, because in the natural surroundings, there'd be some insects that would do the job, but the insects usually live in a pretty close symbiotic relationship with the plant, so they're not found in Australia if it's an exotic cycad.
So you've got to be the pollinator.
Absolutely.
Will loves the shapes and colours of his cycads, and there's such a large variety available. Their angular beauty is guaranteed to make a dramatic statement in any garden. One of the misconceptions about cycads is that they're all large, dramatic landscape plants, but that's not the case. This is a beautiful ground cover.
It is, and it's not even prickly. It's very soft to the touch. Because it doesn't grow a stem, it just has these suckers growing. It'll gradually spread, and if you plant quite a few of them close to each other, you get a beautiful ground cover effect.
Many cycads, like Cycas revoluta, produce pups from their stems and suckers from their roots, and these can be removed to grow as new plants.
All you have to do is take this, put some potting mix in a container,
Now, is that ordinary potting mix?
This is ordinary potting mix. It really has the slow-release fertiliser in it. You just put that in there and away you go. And then keep it moist. I'll put a little bit of this around it.
And what is that?
Well, this is actually a granular dolomite, as distinct from lime. So this will give a continual, slow-release form of calcium and magnesium for the plant. And I found in my experience that plants that are hard to grow will be very much easier to grow if you have some of that in your potting mix.
Well, that's great advice that comes from a lifetime of experience as well as a passion for gardening that really shines through in both of them.
I like being surrounded by nice greenery and wander around and be satisfied to look around and say, OK, it looks nice.
I just enjoy playing around in the dirt with the plants, really. Just so many different plants. You think how beautiful that is and how beautiful that one is.
It could be said that there are two types of people in this world. People who love coriander, that's me, and people who don't like coriander. I'm sorry. It's not just because of the fresh smell and flavour of this plant that I love it so much, but as a gardener, it's so easy to propagate. A cheap bag of coriander seed and you can have coriander for the rest of your days. All you need to do is let a few plants flower and go to seed, and then you can harvest the seed, which can be crushed and made into a spice, or you can store it and plant it out during spring or autumn, because it produces viable seed, meaning it will grow. But the way I like to do it is just to harvest some seed and broadcast it straight away. It'll sit there until the conditions are right and you'll have a fresh crop of coriander for nothing.
I've dedicated the front of our property to a native garden. Firstly, for its habitat value, but also it's a zone that requires very little water and nutrients. The key to successful native planting is choosing species that are well suited to your conditions. For example, all of these plants here are suited to a hot, dry summer and impoverished sandy soils. Now, they're not all local indigenous species, but they all do well in these conditions. For example, this one here, this is Grevillea evanescens, and it's a really robust shrub to about 3 metres, which will fill out this space beautifully. And it puts on lots of bird-attracting flowers through winter and into spring. And it's not from this area, it is from the coastal plain, but just north of Perth, but it will love it here. It's also quite rare in the wild, which is a nice thing to include in the garden. It's quite common now from nurseries. And because it's so well suited to these soils, all I'm doing is putting in a small amount of organic native fertiliser just to help kick it off and also to feed the microbes in the soil. And that's all that it's going to get. So I'm just popping that in, backfilling. And these tube stock are so easy to plant, very cost effective, and of course the plants tend to develop into really strong specimens. The second plant to go in is Verticordia chrysanthella. Again, not from the local area, it's from slightly inland and north of here, but again, well suited to sandy soils and other soil types too. Just teasing these roots very gently. This one's a much smaller shrub, to about 1/2 metre by about 1 metre wide, and it puts on masses of yellow insect-attracting flowers in spring. It really is a great time to be planting native species, particularly tube stock like this, because they can establish over the winter and be well placed to handle the oncoming summer. From a bigger picture, sustainable gardening perspective, one of the reasons that I zone my garden like this and dedicate large areas to low resource requiring plants that still provide habitat and also an urban greening and shading function is that I then allocate those resources out the back for my intensive and productive gardens.
Could you just tell me your name and who you are?
I'm Jane Edmondson, and I've been on Gardening Australia for nigh on 28 years, right from the very beginning.
Plenty of people eat takeaway food these days, and certainly we all drink milk out of these cartons.
I was a very shy person when I was young, very, very shy. Still go very red if given an opportunity. I'd never been in front of a camera before, and it was quite terrifying.
The hydrangea, quite a common plant in many of the old-fashioned gardens.
Until suddenly you think, I can do this, heaven spare us. It's only talking to an inanimate object, a camera, and you've got all those nice people out there who are wanting to hear what you say.
And should be grown more in those dappled, shady positions. Rather exciting colours.
I don't know where that wink came from. I think it was just a nervous habit. You know, I've said what I want to say and I'll just give it a wink, just to kind of double emphasise the fact. Once a stranger looked over the fence and said to me, "Oh, you're that lady on the television. I thought you would have had a very neat, structured kind of garden with English box." And I said, "Oh, no, phooey to that. I just like things to move, a little bit of life. It's important to me." Oh, that looks better, heck. I was born in Mildura, up in the Sunraysia area, and we lived there until I was about 5. My dad and mum then moved us down to Melbourne, where we grew up in the suburbs, North Caulfield, and I went to the North Caulfield Central School, and my mum had the most beautiful garden. Now, this is something that my mum did. She was really, really a creative person, not only in the garden, but she just loved doing embroidery. That's Danish embroidery, all those beautiful little flowers, stitch by stitch. Well, I always think that when you're in your teenagers, oh, gardening, who wants to do gardening? So I went teaching to a place called Dimboola. It was a little country town. And there, the very smart, astute headmaster said, "Jane, you're an outdoor-looking girl." And I was and still am. And he said, "You do this extra little bit. Apart from all the other subjects I was teaching, you go and look after the kids in the garden." And that just showed me that I really wanted to be a gardener. I got a job at the State Schools nursery. My friends thought I was mad because I'd gone from a teaching salary, which wasn't a lot in those days, but it was less working in a nursery. They thought I was jolly bonkers. And I did that for years and years, just pricking out plants, standing at a bench, doing it's sort of mundane, but that's how I learnt. I learnt all the botanical names. I learnt how they grew. Have a look at this. This is a sign that I took when I left the State Schools nursery. It tells you the different lessons that the teachers from all around Victoria would come to the State Schools nursery, learn about nature studies and gardening, and then go back to their schools and teach it. I got it because I was always interested in the history, and this is very fascinating on the back. See those gentlemen with their suits and their ties and their wing collars? They're all doing gardening jobs. Not a woman amongst them. It's incredible. And that just showed me that when I wanted to be a gardener in a nursery in the 1970s, I had to bang on so many doors, and nurserymen would all say, "No, we never accept women." And it took ages for me to find a decent nursery person who would give me a go. And now it's completely the opposite. In most nurseries, you'd find the predominance of women. So I think I was a little bit of a trailblazer. After many years, I had the opportunity to join in with some friends of mine in owning a little nursery, a little tiny suburban nursery in Preston, and it was a lovely experience. And we just had a lovely time. And that's where I really got to know how people in the suburban areas, how they like to garden. And that's where you really learned, not the highfalutin side of gardening, but the real basic gardening, what people want in their backyards and their front gardens. I find people really fascinating. What was the first of the creations that you did?
The first one is the eagle.
Yes.
Then after that, the big elephant. Then
Yes.
the two baby.
Oh, the two babies following the mother elephant.
two baby. She's a single mother.
A single mother
Two baby.
Every time I go to someone's garden or I do a Gardening Australia segment, it's always been a joy.
Your broccoli looks good, Jeff.
The people who love their gardens, you can see that they just love it. And in their hearts, they really want to share with you. They might be a bit nervous about being on the TV, but they just want to share and show how they've done their story.
This is Jane and Darren's Big Backyard.
I love doing radio. I was really born to be a talker on the radio.
11 to 8. Jenny, good morning.
I loved trying to influence people, to inspire them and to answer their gardening questions, which I did for 28 years. Have the leaves got, do they look like they've been sucked dry or not? No? OK. All right. After 28 years, I thought if I have to hear one other lemon tree question, I'll go insane. So I thought, and also there's lots of things that I want to do. I still love the horticultural world. I still love the filming for TV. But it's just that thing of getting up every weekend, Saturday and Sunday morning. It's nice to have a break and I can go and do lots of other things.
That is a big
Now, I want you to name every flower in that bunch.
Oh, don't start me, mate.
In the last show, it was lovely to talk to everyone because they were very complimentary. It was the perfect way to go, especially as the very last question of my radio career was, what's wrong with my lemon tree? Oh, dear. And I notice a beauty here, the good round like that.
Yep.
Boom.
Done.
Thank you, I'll take that home. Put it in the vase.
If young Jane Dimbula was to see Jane now, would she be surprised at what she's done?
I think the young Jane from all those years ago, when she would flush red because of embarrassment and nervousness like anything, she would be totally amazed. Ooh, this does remind me of wrapping up a plum pudding. I pinch myself nearly every day and think, what a lucky person. Fortunate in a way, but you work towards what you get. But I have been fortunate.
I've got a problem with this broccoli, if you could help me with it.
Oh, let's have a look then, yes.
Seasonal fresh fruit. There is nothing like it. And we all know the stuff you grow yourself, well, it tastes and smells better than anything else. But first, you got to do some dirty work. Today I'm putting in a couple of figs, a persimmon, and on the driveway here, an apricot. The soil here is actually pretty good. I've been adding organic matter for about a year, and now I'm just going to pop a little bit more homemade compost, mix it in with the soil, and then excavate that hole. The variety that I'm planting is Moore Park. It's really reliable and it's absolutely delicious. And given that apricots won't ripen once they're picked, if you want good fruit, you've got to grow it yourself. The tree I've got is bare root, which is a deciduous tree literally ripped out of the ground while it's dormant in winter. It means that there's a lot of variety available at this time of the year, and also that they're a little bit cheaper because the transport costs are down. The only thing to check is when you get the root system home, dunk it in a bucket of water before you plant and just recut any of the damaged roots to make sure they're nice and clean. They'll heal up really well. So I've dug the hole a little bit deeper and quite a bit wider than the root system, and I'm just going to backfill. I just want to make sure the roots are covered well, but of course keep the graft well proud of the soil level. Next, I'm planting a persimmon, which I'm hoping is going to be a beautiful feature of my tiny backyard. As well as the beautiful fruit, this one is a variety called Fuyu. You can eat it both hard like a pear and soft and squishy. Persimmon trees have the most incredible foliage, so it's large, emerald green in the summer, and then in autumn you get fantastic tones, purples, reds, oranges. I think it's going to be fantastic. The key thing you need to get right when it comes to soil for persimmons is drainage. This is pretty good because I've been working it for about a year, adding organic matter. Now you can see that the persimmon I have is potted. You can get bare-rooted plants in winter, but they're really fussy about root disturbance, so I would always get a potted plant. I'm gently tickling the roots to make sure none are circling. If If your soil isn't well drained, you can plant your persimmon on a mound. I'm not going to prune this persimmon because I actually want to see what the natural brand structure does. I've never really seen one used as a centrepiece of a garden before, so there's a lot of pressure on this tree, but I'm really hoping. And lastly, to the figs. I've got 2 varieties to plant today, both propagated for free from friends' trees. The first one I did myself. I think it's called the White Adriatic. It's got a strawberry flesh and it's so delicious. The second one was given to me by a friend. I don't know what it is. It's got an elongated purple fruit, but it is certainly delicious. Figs really aren't fussy, as long as they've got well-drained soil and a sunny spot. They're a variety suited to most climate zones in Australia, so give one a go. It really is the best time to plant deciduous fruit trees. I've got my 4th to get in the ground for the day. Promise me you'll do at least one.
If you have hot, dry summers in your area, like we do in South Australia, aloes can really be your friends in the garden. Let me show you a couple of my favourites. One of the less common is the fan aloe, Aloe plicatillus. It's native to South Africa and grown for the unusual fan arrangement of its leaves. It will slowly grow up to 4 metres, but has the habit of a small multi-branched compact tree. It's a great specimen for cultivation in large pots, where it will grow happily for many years. Use a cacti and succulent potting mix. It loves full sun, needs to grow in well-drained soil, but it doesn't like frost, so definitely not one for a frosty area. Another of my favourites is a small species of tree aloe with a big presence, Aloe marlothii, known as the mountain aloe. In the wild, it can get up to 10 metres high, but it's only about 2 metres high in cultivation. The leaves are curved inwards and have irregular brown spines all over them, giving them a great texture. If there's one aloe to grow for its flowers, it's this one. The panicle is extravagant and can be over 1 metre across, spreading out like a massive candelabra with dozens of bright orange flowers, or less commonly red or yellow. Aloes really can make a bold statement in the garden. See if you can find one that is right for your place.
Like me, the owner of this garden is a bit unconventional and unique. And what I really love is that no 2 gardeners are the same. Variety, it's a spice of life. Edwina?
Hello, Costa.
It's lovely to meet you.
You too.
I saw the house, I saw the blue and white, I thought, this has got to be the funky house I'm looking for. Here we go. Meet Edwina, or Ed to everyone she knows, and Tippy, her dog. Ed's been tending this patch in Sydney's inner west for over 20 years. It's wild, uncultivated, and exactly her cup of tea. How would you describe the garden?
I'd describe the garden as feral. There's no structure to it, there's no design to it. It's a whole mishmash of cactus, native, things found in the street, things given to me. And I just put it all together and it has to survive here in the garden. I'm very aware of water restrictions, so that's really why I've gone crazy with the cactus. And then I've got things like my native frangipani beside the house here, which also doesn't take a lot of water. So I'm learning through the act of being in the garden itself and what lives and what dies and making mistakes and just going with it. So it was a completely different garden when I first moved in here, but I've retained 2 rose bushes as a tribute to the previous owners.
That's a nice touch. And then through the ground here, you've got all sorts of varieties of bromeliads.
Yep. That huge clump in there, that was a big find. I was very excited by that.
Everywhere I look around Edwina's garden, there's quirky expressions of her personality. And I don't think one sums it up better than this. I mean, it's a beautiful urn in its own right, but she's turned it upside down and it's a bird bath.
This is a sunny area, so I've decided to put in herbs like my bay leaf sage and tarragon, and then I've put in these little flowering...
Lyciums, yeah.
Yep, and that's to attract the bees.
And I like the fact that this is a simple way to make a garden bed. No need to mix up mortar and actually lay the bricks properly. You've just stacked them on top of each other.
Yeah, that's right.
And it works.
It has worked.
I like the way that you combine all your pots into these nice little creative clusters.
Yeah, this is a selection of pots that are going to stay here. That is an incredible one, isn't it?
Yeah, that mammillaria, it just looks like it's been spun by silkworms and they just keep spreading and spreading. Yeah. And then you got the beautiful colour to catch your eye of the euphorbia. But the question I want to ask you, how do you deal with all the weeds?
The weeds are very difficult to deal with. I've had to become more flexible than I was previously, so I've taken up yoga.
So yoga is the secret to successful cacti weeding?
For me, it has been wonderful.
I need to make an offering for my time here, so I'm going to hold this pose.
That's very good.
And then
I like
in
that,
we go
Costa.
to this onion weed. I'll clear the pebbles around.
Extend that stretch, extend that stretch. That's good, that's good. Now, as you're coming back, slowly, the butt first.
Reverse
Very
downward
good.
dog, and there it is.
That's
onion
really
weed
well
roots,
done.
roots,
Well
bulbs,
done.
and all.
Both of us. Very good.
Oh.
Namaste.
Well, that's it for another week. If you want to revisit any of our stories, jump on the website. I'll see you soon.
Roses are red, white, pink and yellow, and I'll be pruning roses with a lovely young fella.
I'll be showing you around a garden that will inspire you to create some different spaces at your place.
Check this out. I'm 40 metres up amongst the canopy of a tingle forest deep in the southwest of WA. Just wait till you see the rest of this place.